Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Kevin Clark. Now, some of you may have heard he was an actor. He had died tragically. He got hit by a vehicle when he was cycling. Kevin Clark was somebody that starred in a movie that was called School of Rock, and it was with Jack Black. It was apparently his only movie appearance, but he did gain some renown, some notoriety for it. The first thing I'd like to do is offer my prayers and condolences to the friends and family members, if they do happen to see this video, of Kevin Clark. And I want to talk about some transits and natal placements that may have been attributed to his passing. I had to improvise once again and do a solar slash sunrise chart for him because I don't have his birth time. In the solar sunrise chart, of course, it puts the sun at the same point as the ascendant in the chart. Now, the thing is, we can't really overstate, the significance of the nodes in astrology. Some people may not view them as perceive them as significant, but I mean, you could see in this case he did have Kevin Clark at the time of his passing. He had transit South Node in Sagittarius was conjunct his natal sun. When you have the transit and it was separating from it at the time. So when you have, the South Node is about, what we're leaving behind, and sadly the sun can be connected with life. So it's sometimes that could be an indicator of a life ending. And the thing is, at this time in life, that could have been filled with a lot of it being in Sagittarius, a lot of exuberance and ebullience and enthusiasm, and one that he probably in life where he enjoyed sports and being outdoors. I mean, he was cycling. I think it was like 1:20 in the morning at that time. Sadly, when he got hit by the vehicle. And the thing about this is looking at his in having the moon based on the solar sunrise time, the moon in Libra. It shows a lot of that life that what he did with enthusiasm was likely injected into doing things like with music. I think he played the kid drummer in that movie I talked about before that he was in, and maybe even matters. I mean, acting can be connected with Libra, of course. And the thing about this is, I mean, I'm looking at his chart, and it's interesting that he has Mercury conjunct the Sun. And the thing about that is, now in some cases, I'm thinking the life could be affected by a vehicle because Mercury is associated with short journeys. I would say vehicles as well, like cars, and in reckless Sagittarius, maybe he was just feeling a little adventurous. He wasn't really paying, a lot of attention to what was around him. He also has his Mars in the solar sunrise chart. His Mars is in Aries in that fourth house, and Mars in Aries could show that interest in some kind of sport that could be cycling could be example. Cycling, I would say, can be associated with Aries, and Mars can be associated with that energy and our drive, and could have I'd say have a connection with sports as well. Sadly, it falls in the solar sunrise chart, the fourth house of the end of life. Transit Chiron was in that fourth house as well. And Chiron in Aries could manifest in injuries to the head, the skull, the face. I did not see, where he, as far as where he was specifically injured, but I know that he was pronounced dead fairly shortly after the accident. There was a report online where he had died he was pronounced dead at like 2:04 a.m. and the accident transpired at like approximately 1:20 a.m. And the thing about this is too, looking at the chart as well, in the solar sunrise chart, he does have the ruler of the fourth house. Aries is on the cusp of the fourth house. Well, Aries on the cusp of the fourth by itself may manifest in some case, I would say, the end of life being connected with an accident or something of a volatile nature. And then the ruler of that fourth in the fourth, so it might have been tied into doing something that he felt at home with. And the thing about this too is you look at this. Um, Sadly, I'm looking at some placements in his chart. He also had at the time of his not at the time of his past, I should say, in his natal placement, he has Mars square Neptune. And significance with that is that could be, Neptune could be about escaping, eluding things. Mars can be, doing. Mars could be a little bit reckless, I would say. It can be about, it can be associated with accidents. Mars and Aries could have accidents due to really being impulsive, being in Aries. Maybe this may have manifested in his chart natally as having difficulty escaping an accident at this time. And he also has Mars square Uranus in his natal chart, and that could show perhaps some very unpredictable, erratic type of actions, I would say. And the thing is, maybe that caused some difficulty as well, or played some role in him getting, sadly, getting hit by the vehicle. I don't know, who was actually, liable in this case. I guess that more news is going to come out on this as the story develops. And the thing about this too, uh, in his chart, I noticed, okay, he has the zodiac sign Cancer on the cusp of the 8th house in the solar sunrise chart. That ruler falls in the 10th house, and that's an indicator of a death that may gain some notoriety and recognition. Another thing, I'm looking at as well, that another indicator that is death was one that was likely going to gain, some notoriety and recognition and exposure, is that the ruler of that 10th house in the solar sunrise chart, it's Venus, because Libra is on the 10th. Venus conjuncts his natal Pluto in Scorpio. And Pluto, that, I know it's generational, but remember that Pluto is very dark energy, and this accident did transpire at night. He also had transit Mars in the 8th house in the solar sunrise chart, and that could be an indicator of a death. That would be through an accident or through something of a volatile nature. Having the zodiac sign Cancer on the 8th house cusp by itself could manifest in a death that took place near one's home and family and residence. And having transit Mars in that 8th house could be an indicator of having, an accident that could be related to, connected with death, that may have been near one's home and one's family or what have you. I don't know if his family lived near him, but I believe his home was not far from where the accident had transpired. And the thing about this is, in the 12th house, he has a Scorpio on that cusp, and one of the rulers, Mars, falls in the 4th house of the end of life. And you look at the 12th house, is a house of endings, and you have that, it's also about restrictions. So it's really the way that may have been expressed and manifested with him, is that there may have been some restrictions in connection with the end or that latter part of his life, and sadly he did not get to live it. And another thing as well is, keep in mind, it's interesting, sadly, that this took place on that day when we had that lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, and his sun is in Sagittarius. It's about life. Now, by transiting orbs, it may not be perceived as an actual, the transit moon actually conjoining his natal sun, but it was not far away from it at the time. And I don't think we could definitively say if something's, 5 or 6 degrees away by transit, that it doesn't have any kind of an impact on that planet that it's near, that's in close proximity to. And sadly, when you look at lunar eclipses in astrology, they can be about endings. They can be about very significant ones as well. They could be life-altering experiences. They could be very monumental. You're talking about the lunar eclipse being associated with endings in Sagittarius. Um, and it was not far from his natal sun in Sagittarius. And the sun, again, can be associated with life. And the thing is, maybe this sadly may have played some role astrologically in his passing. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, and another thing is the fact that people may look at this and not see it as that significant, but the transit of the Black Moon Lilith in Taurus was not far from his Jupiter, natal Jupiter in Taurus at this time. And the thing about that is, when you have it, may not have been conjunct by orbs, but it was not far away from his natal Jupiter. Black Moon Lilith can be connected, would have a connection with death. Jupiter, as I've talked about in previous videos, could be very paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand, and maybe this may have played some role in expanding that propensity for death at this time. And it's interesting that it's in Taurus, because it certainly obviously was not a death that was very peaceful, but it may have, you could look at it like it took place at a time where he was trying to have maybe maybe have some kind of peace in his life at this time. And in cycling, I'm sure he was by himself when he was doing it. Was at nighttime. He wanted to just maybe he felt this was something that was actually kind of relaxing, maybe for him to take this ride out at nighttime. So and really, and that's really don't have much more to add to it, than this. And the only other thing I could, I noticed in this chart as well is that I count Chiron in this. Some people may see it as somewhat controversial, because a lot of people don't consider, Chiron, that Chiron should count in a configuration in astrology. But I counted, and based on the solar/sunrise time, he does have what I would call, but well, not what I would call, what's considered it's a cardinal grand cross, and with the moon in Libra, and then he has all that conjunction with Uranus and Saturn and Neptune in Capricorn, and then the Mars in Aries, and also Chiron in the zodiac sign Cancer. And Mars in this is significant because Mars is in its dignity in Aries. It's in a, Mars could be connected with accidents. It can be associated with injury. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some injury to his head, his skull, his face at this time. Aries is also associated with the eyes. There may have been some eye injury as well. You're talking about Chiron being involved, which can be about physical wounds in the zodiac sign Cancer. This probably didn't happen far from his home. Moon in Libra. Moon is associated with the home. And then you have that stellium with Uranus and Saturn and Neptune. Neptune is very nebulous and clear energy. Uranus is very unpredictable. And I mean Saturn. I mean, not as far as Saturn goes, that could be some kind of restriction. And the thing is, looking at in despondency, sadness. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.